We're having fun playing with all the dimensional stitches on the Husqvarna Viking Designer EPIC 2. So you'll find in your menu L, you've got a whole bunch of different styles of exclusive stitches that are done in a whole different way. So a couple things, I'm going to show you the tricks for how to stitch them out, how to find the tutorial in this machine, so if you forget how to do it, what those steps are. And then even too, if you touch the question mark and then touch the stitch, it will remind you which stitch is what technique. Applique stitch, that's what we're working on. It says activate the needle down function, and when the machine stops, place applique fabric from behind. So I have my little pile of applique fabric that we're going to be doing. That's what you actually see right here. So these stitches, which we have placed on our Stitching Cosmos online course quilt, when I did that particular block, I just had fun, and I just utilized the opposite colors. Now they are meant to be a raw edge finish, but what I did was, that's just, there's no embroidery in any of this, but people always ask, how did you embroider that? And I say, no, it's done on the sewing machine. Those are actual stitches built into your machine. And people are like, I have those stitches? And I'm like, yes. So if you haven't taken time to stitch out your stitches, create your stitch book, or check out our Husqvarna Viking Stitching Cosmos online course, I hope you'll do that. You'll find links, all those links below this YouTube video. So speaking of videos, there are tons of videos in this machine. So if you're a very visual learner, let's start with going to the top center with the sewing machine. You're going to the Joy OS Advisor, and you're probably starting with the basic sewing techniques here. If you touch dimensional stitches, and we're looking for the applique stitch area. By the choice here, it takes you to just the stitches that are applique stitches, and then brings up the step-by-step instructions, which, by the way, if you toggle towards the end, you're going to find one of them has a picture of a video and a play button. So this will be what you can actually quick peek at. Make sure that the integrated dual feed is disengaged and that you've put on the foot that's recommended for that stitch. So we're going to sew a little bit, and then as the needle stops in the down position, you're going to pause and actually slide fabric behind the needle, and it will stitch kind of back on top of the fabric. It will continue on, and I'm going to do a little fast forward, stopping at each stitch. And then as we get towards the end here, you will find that you take your scissors and trim the little squares that you've been adding, and just trim nice and close to the stitching. And that is how we get those wonderful applique stitches, or appliques added to those stitches. So let's go ahead and show you up close and personal how to make the applique stitches. So I do have foot S on because this is a side-to-side ways moving stitch. We've done some of the pop-up stitches, the theme stitches, the laser pictogram stitches, some omni-motion stitches, some tassel stitches, some crystal stitches, and some of the tapering stitches. So if you haven't already checked out or realized how many videos we have been doing on this machine, that is just a quick little refresher. So I'm going to touch the start stop button. I do have the needle stopping down feature engaged, and I am waiting for it to stop so I can add my piece of fabric. So a little tip I learned somewhere along the line is if you actually give the fabric a little snip, and I'm going to actually bring the needle up into this little groove, and I'll show you why when we're done. If you want a little bit more room, touch the foot up button. Make sure you don't touch it twice. That would bring the needle out of the fabric, kind of throw you off. But what I'm doing is just slipping this fabric and that little groove right up to the needle, and then as I push the start button to stop again, it really stitches nicely over the top of that fabric. It keeps it from leaving a little gap at the bottom. Trust me, that is something that can make a little difference there. We'll just do one more, and then we'll add another piece, and then I'll show you how to trim the fabric. So on this one, I didn't put the little groove in there for it to slip beside, and it did okay, but I am so close to that edge that sometimes it leaves a little gap between the fabric and the stitching. So then you're just going to take some scissors. I did actually use some batik fabrics, so they are nice, tight woven fabrics. They're not going to fray out so much, so that's just a little kind of side tip. If you have a choice between a regular cotton fabric and a batik fabric, I would pick the batik fabric. So here's the one that I kind of slipped up through that little opening. We'll give it a little trim, and you'll see it really helps make sure that it covers all the stitch, but it just is so fun to add that little pop of color. And you're realizing, even though I had these very small squares to start off with, how much it actually uses or doesn't use. Like, I can totally get another one out of this side of this very small square. So anyway, have some fun. All those applique stitches are going to stitch out totally different. Oh yeah, I can totally see where I would want to have that little groove. This one definitely looks better than the second one. But test them out. Different stitches, different fabrics, different thread colors are all going to combine together to look totally different. So even though I'm using variegated thread, you can find the combinations of thread, fabric, and stitches that you love the best.